Welcome to the Introduction to the Incident Command System, or ICS as it is commonly called. This course provides an introduction to the Incident Command System. You will learn the reasons this system is useful for hospitals, the basic features of ICS, and see examples of its use in hospitals. You will also discover how the ICS has been adapted to use in hospitals as the Hospital Incident Command System, or HICS. This course concludes with a discussion on how ICS fits into the National Incident Management System, or NIMS. The Incident Command System is a standardized all-hazard incident management system that enables hospitals as well as other response and public safety agencies to organize resources, facilities, and staff to maintain control of both emergent and non-emergent incidents and events that fall outside the norm of routine occurrences. ICS is based on proven management tools that contribute to the strength and efficiency of the overall system. The use of ICS at hospitals helps medical facilities remain operational during an emergency and promotes the restoration of day-to-day operations. It is an efficient method for managing emergencies of large proportions as well as those that are less demanding. ICS moves the management of the crisis out of the emergency department and administrative offices to a hospital command center, where leadership personnel can gather and perform their tasks in a more efficient and focused manner. With proper management, chaos is minimized, normal operations resume sooner, the cost of the event is monitored, safety is maximized, and personnel is used more efficiently. Hospitals are often confronted with situations that could impact their ability to provide patient care and manage resources. These incidents and events, whether large or small, naturally occurring or man-made, require a response that must be well organized so that the hospital can quickly adapt to the changing circumstances and maintain operations with as little impact as possible. Natural disasters such as snowstorms, hurricanes, flooding, and tornadoes can cause disruptions. So can environmental emergencies, community incidents, or acts of terrorism. Non-catastrophic events are just as likely to cause a disruption to hospital services. Internal hospital emergencies such as a fire alarm, emergency department overcrowding, or a staff shortage are examples of how everyday events can impact the hospital's ability to provide care. Most incidents are of small consequence and are handled quickly and efficiently at the department level without ever involving a supervisor or administrator on call. A spill of a tissue preservative in the lab is an example of an incident that can be quickly contained if proper training is provided and cleanup supplies are readily accessible. In fact, most incidents require only a small, localized response that includes an individual in command and a single resource, such as a decon team, or a piece of equipment such as a fire extinguisher, that can be quickly deployed to resolve the situation. A fire alarm in an operating suite is an example of a potentially expanding incident. Maybe it's just a false alarm which can be easily rectified with a simple phone call, but maybe it's not. A fire in an operating suite would require quick evacuation of staff and the patient, who may not be in a position to be moved. If not contained, the smoke will spread rapidly through the area. Now, instead of a small event, the hospital has an evolving emergency that rapidly expands beyond the capabilities of single resources, requiring significant additional resources and operational support. How this emergency is managed will impact employee and patient safety, as well as the delivery of care. Every hospital has an organizational hierarchy to manage day-to-day operations. This administrative structure relies on strategic planning and collaborative management to make decisions. This works well in most situations, even small incidents. Unfortunately, its success in these small incidents leads hospitals to believe that it can function well in larger emergencies. However, as the size and complexity of events escalate, The ability of a normal administrative hierarchy to effectively manage and control the ever-changing situation diminishes. Chaos ensues, response becomes self-directed, resources are wasted, and decisions are made locally without any centralized direction or planning. Incident management requires a level of command and control beyond what is normal for administrative operations. An incident commander, or IC, must be quickly established to control incidents effectively. This could be anyone who is capable and trained, including senior administrators, executive officers, or nursing leadership. For ICS to be successful, it is critical that everyone at the hospital accepts that the incident commander is in charge during the response, regardless of their usual title or job assignment. Consider the personnel, resources, and issues involved in the following scenario. A multi-vehicle accident involving a school bus and a tanker truck occurs 2 blocks from your hospital. A breach in the tank causes a release of diesel fuel. Your hospital only becomes aware of the incident when bystanders begin carrying wounded children into the hospital. Many are contaminated with diesel fuel. Ambulances are dispatched to the scene to transport the seriously injured. The fire department, police department, county hazmat team, state environmental officials, and school personnel are either on scene or at the hospital. Field decontamination units are being established. There are now 15 patients from the incident in your emergency department, with 8 more seriously wounded on their way via EMS. The media has arrived and worried parents are beginning to trickle into the hospital. An event like this requires a coordinated effort to ensure an effective response, accurate tracking of resources, and consistent communications. Patient influx, injured responders, decontamination, patient tracking, and security are just the start of the demands. A variety of problems arise when individuals attempt to manage rapidly moving events through over-reliance on intuition, reflex actions, and an unfamiliar disaster plan rather than on a structured management system. These problems include ineffective supervision, unclear lines of authority, inadequate communications, weak interagency coordination, and unfamiliar terminology. The loss of financial accountability, poor public relations, unclear incident objectives, and staff injuries are also common. Each of these problems can be diminished during an emergency by using the incident command system. The overall impact of any incident can be minimized when ICS is available, practiced, and implemented quickly with a structured and focused set of objectives and responsibilities. Many incidents require interaction and cooperation with a variety of response organizations and community health partners. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of ICS is that it allows for these various groups to form an overall management team, a so-called unified command that works together to resolve an incident. ICS has several features that make it a universally effective method for coordinating multiple interests in all types of incidents. They include common language and terminology, modular design, flexibility, manageable span of control, predictable chain of command, management by objectives, integrated communications, resource management and tracking, and accountability of position and team function. ICS employs a common language and terminology that is critical to ensuring that efficient and clear communications occur between different responders and response organizations. ICS requires that standard leadership titles are used and are consistent with those used by other emergency response groups and agencies. Each title within the ICS structure has a unique and consistent mission. This helps avoid confusion and mission overlap. ICS is modular in its application. It is based on a dynamically developed incident action plan to manage the particular incident. The objectives of that plan become functions within the ICS and are assigned to individuals through their positions in the incident management team chart to carry out. This means that only those positions needed to accomplish a particular objective are activated based on the scope and magnitude of the incident. This approach allows for increased efficiency and organization. You should try to think of the ICS incident management team positions as tools in a toolbox. You would not pull out a hammer, tape measure, and wrench if all you needed to do was hammer a nail into a board. The same thinking applies when deciding which tools to use from the ICS toolbox. ICS is also a flexible system that builds from the top down and allows for the activation or addition of positions as well as the deactivation of positions as needed during an incident. In many circumstances, one person can manage several functions. At the onset of an emergency, this individual, who in ICS is called the incident commander, manages all necessary functions. As the incident evolves, subordinate leaders are appointed as needed to better manage the various objectives of the response. Small or medium-sized hospitals, or any hospital after hours, may require individuals to simultaneously perform several roles in the incident management team throughout the response or until additional assistance arrives. Some individuals, by virtue of their background and training, might be capable of performing in more than one position when necessary. ICS requires an effective and manageable span of control. This means that one supervisor can effectively manage 3 to 7 subordinates, depending on the complexity of their missions. In incident management, you should strive to keep a ratio of 5 or fewer subordinates to each supervisor. If this ratio goes above 5 to 1, consider expanding the organizational hierarchy of your response by adding a new supervisory position. If your ratio falls below 3 to 1, you should consider consolidating your organization to maximize efficiency. Predictable chain of command is a related concept which holds that each designated incident management team position reports only to one supervisor within the ICS organization. In other words, an individual assigned to the ICS organizational structure should not be expected to simultaneously perform their normal job duties in addition to the duties associated with their incident management team position. This includes no indirect supervision that is outside the established mission of each sector or function. It is also absolutely critical that each person follows command instructions and does not freelance based on their own incomplete understanding of the incident. Chain of command also defines how communications should be accomplished. When communicating, an individual can only talk up one and down one, meaning they need to talk up the command chain one slot to their supervisor and down one slot to everyone they supervise. ICS relies on management by objectives, in which the problem encountered is evaluated, a plan to remedy the problem is identified, necessary resources assigned, and the plan implemented. The command staff manages the response using objectives that are communicated throughout the organization. Less complicated events may entail only the incident commander thinking ahead and communicating future actions to others. A larger or more complex incident may rely on a written incident action plan or IAP. This plan establishes and communicates the response objectives for future periods of time, called operational periods. These operational periods may be any length, but during major events are often 12 hours long, which correlates with the need to adjust work shifts to increase staffing. Integrated communication is another key feature of ICS. This means that all forms of communication throughout the system and across jurisdictions are managed properly using standard operating procedures, clear text using no abbreviations or acronyms, common frequencies, and common terminology. Staff cannot coordinate and cooperate if they are unable to understand one another when they try to communicate. A plan is needed to communicate the overall incident objectives, information, and warnings throughout the chain of command. Communication pathways and methods must be established and understood. For example, during a power failure, additional batteries are needed in the patient care units. The leaders in those units function as part of the operations section, so they contact the operations section chief, who then contacts the logistics section chief. The supply unit leader from the logistics section is contacted and arranges for the delivery of the batteries. The transaction is communicated to the finance section chief, who makes sure the procurement unit leader orders additional supplies. This illustration of formal communication is used when receiving and giving work assignments, requesting support or additional resources, and for reporting progress or assigned tasks. Other information concerning the incident or event can be passed horizontally or vertically within the organization without restriction. This is known as informal communication. For example, the food services unit leader from the logistics section may directly contact the resources unit leader in the planning section to determine the number of persons requiring feeding. Resource management and tracking are key features that are often overlooked when ICS is not used. Including the finance sector as one of the very few major sections of the system indicates the importance of this function. The high number and diversity of resources that may be needed during an incident requires a coordinated program to track their use and cost. Resources are designated as assigned, available, or out of service. Accountability for incident management team positions and team functions during an event is essential. The incident commander is ultimately responsible for all activities, but all supervisors must be fully aware of who is under their command and their subordinates' roles. This begins with staff sign-in and documentation of roles and responsibilities. It continues throughout the incident when activities and operational objectives are assigned to specific individuals who are responsible for the completion of those tasks. Over time, the ICS model has developed and become the management backbone of most emergency response organizations, from local to federal agencies, civil service areas, and the private sector. The Hospital Incident Command System, or HICS, is the most common adaptation of ICS to hospitals. Most accreditation bodies require hospitals to utilize such a structured incident management system at their facility. ICS is a core component of the National Incident Management System, or NIMS. NIMS was developed by the Department of Homeland Security to enable medical personnel and responders of all jurisdictional levels and across all disciplines to work together more effectively and efficiently during an emergency, regardless of its cause, size, location, or complexity. The objective of NIMS is to standardize the way all response organizations and hospitals approach incident command, preparedness, resource management, communications, and support technologies. If a variation of any of these is adopted on a local level, then the critical interface between responding agencies and jurisdictions cannot occur when the emergency grows and the need for response expands. With the establishment of NIMS, there is only one ICS. As hospitals and agencies adopt the principles and concepts of ICS as established in the NIMS, the incident command system will expand to meet the needs of the incident, regardless of the size or number of responders. The key to both NIMS and ICS is a balance between standardization and flexibility. NIMS management structures are based on three key organizational systems. The Incident Command System is the systematic tool used for command, control, and coordination of the emergency response. The Multi-Agency Coordination System, or MACS, provides the basic architecture for facilitating the allocation of resources, incident prioritization, coordination, and integration of multiple agencies for larger-scale incidents and emergencies. Finally, the public information system includes the processes, procedures, and systems for communicating timely and accurate information to the public during an emergency. For hospitals to be in compliance with NIMS, there are several hospital-specific elements that must be met. These elements are a series of steps that must address a variety of expectations, including preparedness activities, resource management, communications and information management, supporting technologies, and training and exercises. Persons expected to assume leadership roles must receive formalized training intended to teach fundamental incident command principles and specific information about command roles and responsibilities. The coursework to be completed varies depending upon the command position being assumed, the local hazard vulnerability, and the types of events the hospital is at risk of experiencing. Information from this training program, as well as more specialized courses available from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Emergency Management Institute, will help guide you in your ongoing training. This introduction to the Incident Command System explained to you why ICS is needed and some of its basic features. Hospitals and other responders are faced with diverse and complicated incidents every day. They are also required to integrate their incident management schemes with other responders. Sometimes a joint response is in order. The only way to safely and efficiently respond together is to use the same management system. ICS is the national standard for incident management. It is proven, well-practiced, simple, and flexible.